Darkcast Network. Welcome to the dark side of podcasts.
The Mythical True Crime Podcast is now proudly joining the Darkcast network of indie podcast creators. Join us as we delve into the mysterious and the macabre, exploring captivating tales of true crime, legends, and unsolved mysteries from the realms of mythology and reality. Uncover the dark, true tales of modern legends with our spoken narratives and the blend of history, crime, and the supernatural.
Hey there, Rainbow Warriors, and welcome to Beyond the Rainbow, True Crimes of the LGBTQ+. I'm your host, CJ. I'm going to jump right into this important episode. Jason, the father of the victim in this episode, he contacted me via Facebook and he asked me to cover his daughter's case. I asked my friend Courtney from the Book of the Dead podcast to help me with it. So this will be a collaboration episode and there'll be no true crime quickie at the end. Oftentimes, you'll see true crime podcasters will title their episode The Mysterious Death of Someone. And while this case could be titled that, for the family of victim Kaylene Oehling, especially for her father Jason, they feel there is no real mystery to their loved one's death. They consider her death a murder, and they also believe they know who her killer is. After seeing the message the man they suspect of Kaylene's murder, who is named Michael Mano, sent to Jason, I tend to agree. The message from the alleged killer told Kaylene's dad, I took care of her. Too bad you can't search my backyard. And then, fine, I killed her, but you have no proof. Followed up with a laughing face emoji. That's a bold and disgusting move to send a message like this to a grieving father, whether or not Mano is Kaylene's murderer or not. Michael Mano had also texted a nude picture of Kaylene to Jason and to one of Kaylene's younger siblings. I wanted to throw that out there to show what kind of sick dude we're talking about. Let's get a little into Kaylene's background. Kaylene was a self-proclaimed bisexual woman, and she'd come out as bisexual in high school. Kaylene wasn't too much about school, and she had dropped out. As I've discussed in other episodes, some people just aren't institutional learners, and they learn more from life experiences. This was Kaylene. She got more out of working on cars than sitting in algebra class trying to figure out how numbers and letters add up. Kaylene was a junior firefighter, and she loved volunteering with her dad at their church. Growing up, she was a tomboy, and she preferred playing with toys that were deemed to be boy toys. This is something I can very much relate to. Kaylene loved hanging out with her family, and she was a great big sister. Another thing Kaylene loved was doing nails. She aspired to do hair and nails for a career someday. While it's not 100% clear just how Kaylene met Michael Mano and became romantically involved with him, what is clear, this guy was not a good match for her. Mano was 25 years Kaylene's senior, making him 44 or 45 years old when they started to date. He also has a felony rap sheet as long as a new roll of toilet paper. And I thought that a fair comparison since this guy is a shit stain of a human. Kaylene broke it off with Mano when she discovered he was cheating on her with another woman. And after Mano's love bombing of Kaylene was all done, she started to see him for the asshole he really is. Weeks after their breakup, Kaylene found out she was pregnant with Mano's baby. Jason, her dad, accidentally discovered about Kaylene's pregnancy a few months before she went missing. He'd gone into her room to get something while she was in the shower, and he saw the positive pregnancy test. Both of Kaylene's parents came together and sat her down for a long conversation. That's when Kaylene decided to move in full-time with her dad and her then stepmom. They were going to help with the baby and help Kaylene get her GED. Both things were something Kaylene really wanted to have happen. Kaylene moving in with Jason was going to be a good thing. It got her away from Michael Mano and it put Kaylene on the right track to raise her baby. Exactly 4 years ago is when 20-year-old Kaylene Oehling disappeared, making her family frantic with worry. The date was January 10th, 2020, right before the shit show of COVID had everyone locked down. Kaylene was out visiting a friend before she was supposed to head to her mom's home in Etna, Pennsylvania. Kaylene had plans to babysit her younger siblings who lived with their mother. However, in spite of texting her mom very early in the morning that she'd be there later, Kaylene would never get to her mom's. Later that same day, Kaylene's mom called Jason to let him know that Kaylene never showed up, and no one could get Kaylene on her phone either. Then the mom waited a bit, hoping Kaylene would return on her own. But when that didn't happen, she went and filed a missing persons report on January 12th. Kaylene was a pretty responsible young lady, and it was highly out of character for her not to show up when the whole point of her being near Etna was to watch her younger siblings. Jason claims the Etna Police Department did a crappy job from the get-go on Kaylene's case. After Kaylene's mom filed the report, Jason tried to follow up with an email to the police. He asked for a copy of the report so he could maintain a paper trail. But the Etna police didn't file the report with the National Missing Database until March 13, 2020. That's a day over 2 months later. Can you imagine being the parent of a missing child and the cops dropping the ball on your kid for 2 freaking months? It's beyond infuriating. Jason, who was displeased with Etna Police Department's lackadaisical interest in looking for Kaylene, he begged the police department to transfer her case to the county, but they refused. The Etna Police Department only went once to Michael Mano's residence to ask questions, in spite of everything that was shared with them about the man. Finally, half a year later, after tiring of Jason's asking, the Etna police agreed to transfer Kaylene's case, along with an active warrant to search Mano's home and property. Mano lived in the residence with his mother, his kids, and his current girlfriend. When the new police department on the case of Allegheny County went to pay a visit to Mano's house, the girlfriend and the mother told the police they couldn't go into the garage because there was a vicious dog locked in the garage. Say what? You can't refuse the police to go into places if they have a warrant. If you have a vicious dog in the garage, the police can put your dog down. So what the fuck? But the police didn't search the garage. I only wish that they had known a year or so prior when Kaylene was still with Mano, he had padlocked her in that garage. Kaylene met up with Mano between the time she was done visiting her friend and when she was supposed to go watch her siblings. This would have been the early morning hours of January 9th and January 10th, right around 1 a.m., so technically January 10th. Kaylene's purpose for seeing Mano was to try and get her grandmother's necklace he had taken from her. At 1:36 a.m., a text from Kaylene's phone to her mom was sent to assure her mom she'd be home later that morning to watch her siblings. At 3:40 a.m., Kaylene's phone pinged over the 62nd Street Bridge in Sharpsburg, Pennsylvania. 10 minutes later, Mano's phone shows that he made a call to his friend Amir. Nearly 12 hours later, at 3 p.m., after Kaylene missed her babysitting detail, Kaylene's mom called Mano and asked where Kaylene was. Mano said that Kaylene didn't want to talk to her, and he refused to put Kaylene on the phone. Allegheny police didn't do an official group search until August 2020, although her family and friends did several group searches on their own. And then, March 19, 2023, Kaylene's case moved from a missing persons case to a homicide case. Because March 19, 2023, is when her remains were discovered in Allegheny County. And now I'm going to pass the baton to Courtney of the Book of the Dead for more information on Kaylene's case. Courtney?
Thanks, CJ. On March 19, 2023, a Sunday, hunters were in the woods near the 1200 block of Washington Boulevard in the Lincoln-Leamington-Belmar area of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, just after 2:15 p.m., when they stumbled upon a human skull. Once investigators were called, they arrived and found more human remains. That Friday, the remains were confirmed to be that of Kaylene. When he was notified, Jason said, quote, "All the blood just ran from me. Just hearing them words, Jason, it's Kaylene. It's confirmed. Total shock. Just total shock because you just always hope for a different outcome." And I can only imagine the mix of emotions that comes from being notified that your loved ones have been found after waiting years for information. There's the anguish of having the unimaginable pain of learning that his daughter is gone, but you also have that sense of something akin to relief because Jason can lay his baby to rest. But now there is that ache and suffering of just waiting for answers as to what happened. On March 24th, once the family was notified about the identification, Jason and other family members arrived at Washington Boulevard to create a memorial for Kaylene at the site where she was found. While there, Jason and his daughter found 2 more bones. Pittsburgh police and the Allegheny County Office of the Medical Examiner were notified of the discovery, and they came back to the scene to investigate, where the medical examiner found an additional bone. According to Jason, the manager of operations for the Allegheny County Office of the Medical Examiner, Nelson Early, confirmed on the 30th that the bones were the forearm, shoulder, and toe of Kaylene Oehling. The biggest issue with these additional bones being found is that it indicates that investigators did not thoroughly investigate the scene when they were first called by the hunters. These bones were found not miles away. They were in the exact same area. So how did police miss them? That tells me that the police did not do their job properly. Unfortunately, and this could be due to the condition of Kaylene's remains, the medical examiner was unable to determine a cause and a manner of death. And just for clarification, the cause would be the method in which she died, whether via strangulation, trauma, etc. And the manner in which she died is the categorization, such as homicide, natural causes, suicide, etc., etc. Now, when Kaylene was found, according to Jason, the clothes she was wearing the day she disappeared were also found, which clearly indicates that Kaylene died the day she went missing. So, at least in my mind, police would have to be looking at the last person confirmed to have seen Kaylene that day, which was Michael Mano. Additionally, the site where she was found was about 20 feet away from land reported as belonging to Michael Mano's father, Pasquale, just beyond the railroad tracks. This area also had security cameras nearby, which, if police had done a proper investigation from the get-go, it's very possible they would have discovered these cameras and would have been able to view the footage if they investigated Michael Mano and his family properly. Now, that's not to suggest his immediate family had anything to do with it, but looking into his family would have led them to land in close proximity. This would mean that Kaylene could have been found soon after disappearing, saving her family years of heartache, and it also means that the police could have possibly had visual proof of who put Kaylene's body in that area, further aiding in the investigation. Now, the Allegheny County District Attorney's Office did confirm that Kaylene's death is being investigated as a criminal matter, but they have been incredibly tight-lipped about the investigation thus far, which is interesting because they have a person of interest in Michael Mano at the very least. Now, the problem with the investigation is that there really isn't one, at least from the outside looking in. Jason Oehling has been fighting for the last 3 years for progress to be made, but it seems as if law enforcement is either not doing anything, even though the case is considered active, and there has only been one update to my knowledge that has been given to the family, although that has not been made public at this time. Either way, if they aren't really talking, then the assumption is that they aren't doing their jobs. But unfortunately, as we've seen before, this happens all too often. So we're going to talk about Michael Mano, the man that Jason Oehling wholeheartedly believes killed his daughter. And there is even an alleged confession from Michael, but the DA's office refuses to sign an arrest warrant. First of all, this shining example of an exemplary citizen has had multiple charges filed against him going back to 1994. These include charges of corruption of minors, reckless endangerment, statutory sexual assault, conspiracy, and criminal solicitation. And that is just to name a few. We're talking career criminal. Additionally, the corruption of minors charge was due to Michael Mano sending sexually explicit photos of Kaylene to her younger sister in 2022 via Facebook, as well as to Jason himself. Now, Michael took a plea deal in regard to this, pleading no contest, and was sentenced to 6 to 12 years in prison with 1 year of probation. He was also barred from having any contact with the victim. It's interesting to me, though, that he only got 1 year max when, according to Pennsylvania law, the sentence for corruption of a minor related to a sexual act is up to 7 years, and it's considered a serious criminal offense because it is one. Now, that's besides the fact that this was clearly a taunt when you take into consideration the fact that Michael, as CJ said, taunted Jason on Facebook saying that he killed Kaylene prior to this happening. In fact, let me repeat to you the direct quote. Michael said, quote, "I took care of her. Too bad you can't search my backyard. Fine, I killed her, but you have no proof." And then he very kindly added a laughing emoji. What more do the police need based on this alone to bring him in, have a conversation with him, do a thorough search of his home, including the yard, the shed, the basement, everywhere? That alone should have been enough to bring him in. A spokesperson for the Allegheny County DA's office actually released a statement about this where they said, quote, "The decision whether to file criminal charges in a missing persons case in which a body is discovered after several years have passed must be approached carefully and methodically. The family will be justifiably passionate about obtaining justice for their loved one as soon as possible. However, we must proceed deliberately in order to ensure that there is sufficient admissible evidence to not just identify a suspect, but also that there is sufficient admissible evidence to link that suspect to criminal acts that resulted in the death of the victim. There can be no rush to judgment or arrest. There is an ongoing investigation with county detectives actively working with attorneys in our office. The district attorney will continue to confer with the county superintendent. However, details of an ongoing active investigation cannot be discussed." As I've said in multiple cases that I have covered, I fully understand that there are procedures that need to be followed in regard to any criminal investigation. However, when there is evidence indicating there is an identified guilty person, coupled with the fact that the investigation from the very beginning was not handled efficiently like it should have been, this to me sounds like a cop-out. Are we really that surprised? There is a possible reason for Michael to have gotten such a lenient sentence, though, and that is because he is an alleged police informant for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Obviously, this can't be substantiated since police don't speak about who their informants are, but it could explain why his sentence was just a slap on the wrist and why no one at the DA's office seems to mind that he owes over $23,000 in past due fines related to his charges. Just know that if the average person owed a substantial amount of money to the government, I'm pretty sure the government would be wanting to know why payments weren't being made. If he is an informant, though, that would absolutely also explain why police have yet to sign an arrest warrant for him in regards to the murder of Kaylene Oehling and have refused to go back to thoroughly search his home, which, if it's not obvious, is bullshit. Clearly, this man knows something or very much had something to do with it. If there is anyone with further information on this case or the murder of Kaylene Oehling, they are asked to call the Allegheny County Homicide Unit at 1-833-255-8477 or 412-473-1200. They can also call the Pittsburgh FBI office at 1-800-225-5324. The case number is 0127520.
Thank you so much, Courtney, for coming together with me on the case of Kaylene Oehling. I'm going to go ahead and speak for both Courtney and I. There's nothing more than the two of us would like than to help find justice for Kaylene and her family. And if this means removing a scumbag off the street so he can't hurt anyone else's child, that would be the proverbial icing on the cake. Please be sure to subscribe and listen to the Book of the Dead, Courtney and her mom's podcast. They cover a number of cases that need to be heard, and they do such a wonderful job. Love you, Rainbow Warriors. You matter. And remember, it's not a crime to be gay, bi, trans, or live your truth, unless you're a murderer.